Harvesting winter forage. Our previous presentations looked at when to harvest. You can do a search in YouTube under when to harvest winter forage. Right now, though, we are going to look at how to harvest winter forage. As we showed before, winter forage such as triticale, when fertilized properly with nitrogen and sulfur, can have protein levels of 20%. This is basically a function of fertilizer added. Energy that reaches the mouth of the cow depends on you and how you harvest. Most of the gain or loss of energy is in the non-structural carbohydrates, the sugar and the concentrated energy in cellular starch. Wide swath same-day harvest system is crucial to capturing, conserving, and reaching the mouth of the cow with this energy. Winter forage such as triticale is often 20% sugar when mowed, and yielding a heavy 6 to 14 tons of silage per acre, which is challenging to the traditional drying systems for silage. Sunshine produces dry matter yield in plants. All living organisms respire, burning off energy, just as your body is consuming what you had for your last meal. The difference between what is produced and respiration is the net gain or dry matter yield. This is why a corn plant is 4 inches tall at the beginning of the season and 14 feet tall at the end. When plants are mowed, they are still alive and continuing to function and photosynthesize, converting carbon dioxide and water into energy carbohydrates until the moisture drops to 55%. This uses water at a very rapid pace, drying the plant as long as it's in the presence of sunshine. This directly increases the energy contained in the forage. If the plant is thrown into a windrow with no sun or in the dark at night, then no dry matter is produced. The plant continues to respire energy until it's stopped by drying or fermentation or runs out of energy. The result is a net loss in dry matter within the plant and the energy in your forage. In windrows, the majority of the forage is in the dark. Our research found there is 100% humidity in the windrow, so it can't dry on the inside. There's also no sunlight in there, so no photosynthesis is doing any drying, nor producing any photosynthetic energy. Respiration continues in the dark to reduce energy levels. Sugar is reduced 19% in our research. Starch was reduced 92%, and that's the concentrated energy. This leaves little or no substrate for rapid fermentation, which means even more energy is lost in ensiling. In a traditional narrow windrow, a thin layer, the green on the top of the schematic, is about 20% of the material. It will continue to photosynthesize. The rest of the windrow is in high humidity, consuming energy aerobically. In short, 80% of the windrow is composting. In wide swath, 70% is photosynthetically drying, adding energy to your forage, and only 30% is in the composting conditions. On-farm results found 16% higher energy from wide swath versus traditional made forages. This can both increase your forage feeding level and reduce your cost of milk production simultaneously. Let's look closer at the biology of how forage dries. Moisture decreases as time increases. There's a very rapid initial phase where photosynthetic drying occurs. It'll be more than dry enough at the end of this phase to make silage, even in wrapped round bales. If you are making dry hay, you need to go through the intermediate phase where photosynthesis has stopped, and so conditioning the stem through rollers can be beneficial, as this continues to the final or lag phase where we make dry hay. Conditioning is not needed and in fact counterproductive for photosynthetic drying for silage. Leaving forage overnight can remove through respiration up to 13% of the dry matter, which is all digestible energy. As temperature goes up, these respiration losses increase tremendously. This loss is of the most highly digestible components of the feed. Ensiling the same day the crop is mowed eliminates this huge energy loss. This can be seen in an alfalfa variety drying trial I conducted. This was the dry matter of the standing crop. It was a high humidity day, but a sunny day. The crop was mowed to swath of 90% of cutter bar with no conditioning. After an hour and a half after mowing, the crop was ready to ensile. 2.5 hours after mowing, it was getting too dry for good ensiling. If your mower cannot leave a swath greater than 80% of the cutter bar, we suggest tedding the field immediately after mowing to get a full swath effect. It's imperative that your mower be adjusted to leave as wide a swath as possible. Here, the front of a triple mower is adjusted for full width. Yes, you will drive on the forage, but that does not hamper drying in our tests. Mowing with the swathers in resulted in a swath of only 65% of the cutter bar, too narrow for a heavy-yielding winter forage crop to dry to silage levels the same day it is mowed. Opening the swathers moved it to 80% of cutter bar, increasing the photosynthetic drying, and increases the ability to get winter forage dry enough for silage the same day it's mowed. A major handicap to drying winter forage is the use of any deflector on the back of the machine. Many have a tarp or a drop-down deflector to make a wider swath. This is counterproductive as a highly digestible, low-lignin winter forage impinges on and makes a non-drying lump before dropping to the ground. These large compressed lumps in a swath of winter triticale were made by the tarp at the back of a triple mower and will stop most photosynthetic drying inside of the lumps. This trial with a deflector down had lumps, 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 and lumps, while next to it with the deflector up, there were no lumps on the right. With the deflector up, the winter forage is laid as a loose, porous swath with the majority of the crop exposed to sun for rapid photosynthetic drying. With the deflector down on the left, the lumps are packed and only 3 to 4 inches high. On the right, with the deflector up, the same forage makes a porous swath nearly 1.5 feet high, with more of the forage exposed to the sun to take advantage of photosynthetic drying. This was mowed by 9:30 and in the silo at greater than 35% dry matter at 3 p.m. the same day. As management of winter forage is improved, yields have been moving upwards. An average winter triticale is 3 tons of dry matter per acre, more than 40% higher than an average first cutting alfalfa crop. An alfalfa crop wide swath makes a relatively thin layer. The higher yielding winter forage comes out the back of the wide swath mower with a splat because of the heavier yield. The thicker layer will photosynthetically dry on the top, but not at the lower layers. Tedding as soon as the top layers get a silver cast, usually about 2 hours after mowing, will bring up the lower layers and allow sunlight to restart the photosynthesis and accelerate both drying and energy accumulation throughout the profile. Caution: this is a much heavier crop, and so the forward speed of the tedder needs to be adjusted, or else the tedder will make lumps that are not going to dry. Our replicated research found that conditioning had no effect on speeding drying compared to no conditioning, while tedding had a significant effect. In summary, mowing wide 80% of cutter bar width will speed the drying process. If you can't get your cutter bar out that wide, then ted immediately after mowing. If you do mow at 80% or greater of cutter bar width, we still suggest tedding 2 hours after mowing in order to bring up the lower layers and accelerate drying. Chop longer, preferably an inch. Highly digestible winter forage is like BMR corn, and the longer lengths allow for the extent of digestion before it is washed out of the rumen. Our research found that the longer length of cut drastically reduces leachate coming out of the silo. Ensile or wrap the same day as it's mowed to preserve the sugars in the digestible starch, and use a homolactic bacteria to speed fermentation. You wouldn't fertilize and prepare a field and then walk away and let whatever grows be your hay crop. Ensiling a very high-quality winter forage without an inoculant is the same thing. Where we used a homolactic bacteria on highly digestible, high-sugar forage, you can see in the digestibility of the NDF that we were able to save more digestible energy. The energy conserved was equal to 2.3 pounds of more milk per cow per day. For further information, go to our website at advancedagsys.com.